Summer evenings by the lake were my favorite. The serene waters, the gentle rustling of leaves, and the occasional splash from a jumping fish created a perfect atmosphere for relaxation. This particular evening, however, held an unsettling twist. I had just settled into my usual spot on the old wooden dock, dipping my feet into the cool water, when I first noticed something strange. Across the lake, in the thick forest, a figure stood watching. At first, I thought it was my imagination playing tricks. But no, it was real. A tall, shadowy figure, just standing there, barely visible in the dimming light. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself it was just a trick of the light or perhaps a tree. As the sky darkened, I began to pack up my things. The figure hadn't moved an inch. Feeling a bit unnerved, I decided to head back to the cabin. As I walked along the path, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I had the distinct feeling I was being followed. Glancing back, I saw nothing but the stillness of the forest. I quickened my pace, my heart pounding. By the time I reached the cabin, the sun had fully set. I locked the doors and windows, trying to shake off the eerie feeling. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard a soft tapping on the window. My heart froze. It was slow, deliberate. I forced myself to peek through the curtains, expecting the worst. To my horror, I saw the same figure from across the lake, now just a few feet from my window. Its face was obscured by shadows, but I could sense it was watching me. I stumbled back, my mind racing. What did it want? Why was it here? The tapping continued, sending chills down my spine. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my hands trembling. When the operator answered, I explained my situation in a hushed, frantic whisper. They assured me a patrol car was on its way. Minutes felt like hours. The tapping stopped, and I dared to look outside again. The figure was gone. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. I heard footsteps on the porch, heavy and slow. I held my breath, listening intently. The patrol car arrived, its flashing lights cutting through the darkness. I rushed to the door, flinging it open to greet the officers. They searched the property but found no sign of anyone. They chalked it up to a prank or perhaps my imagination, but I knew better. For the rest of the summer, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I never saw the figure again, but the memory haunted me. The watcher by the lake remained a mystery, a terrifying reminder that some things are better left unexplored. Carnivals had always been a highlight of my summer. The bright lights, cheerful music, and joyful screams of children created an atmosphere of pure happiness. So, when I heard about an old, abandoned carnival on the outskirts of town, my curiosity got the best of me. I decided to explore it with my friend, Sarah. We arrived at dusk, the perfect time for a bit of urban exploration. The place was eerie, with rusty rides and faded tents that hinted at its former glory. We wandered through the deserted grounds, our footsteps echoing in the silence. It felt like stepping into a ghost town, frozen in time. Sarah suggested we check out the funhouse. The building was dilapidated, but we managed to pry the door open and step inside. The air was musty, and the mirrors were coated in a thick layer of dust. We laughed at our distorted reflections, trying to lighten the mood. As we ventured deeper into the funhouse, the laughter died down. The mirrors became more warped, the reflections more grotesque. It felt like the walls were closing in on us. Suddenly, we heard a faint, haunting melody. It was the sound of a music box, playing somewhere in the distance. We followed the sound, our curiosity piqued. The music led us to a small room at the back of the funhouse. In the center of the room was an old, wooden box, intricately carved with circus scenes. The music grew louder as we approached. Sarah opened the lid, revealing a vintage clown figurine, spinning slowly. As the music played, the air grew colder. We both felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The clown's eyes seemed to follow us, its painted smile turning sinister. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, trapping us inside. Panic set in. We banged on the door, but it wouldn't budge. The music grew louder, more discordant. The clown figurine spun faster, its eyes now glowing with an eerie light. I felt a chill run down my spine as the temperature plummeted. Sarah screamed, pointing to the mirrors. Our reflections had changed. They were no longer ours but twisted, monstrous versions of ourselves. The room seemed to warp around us, the walls closing in. In a desperate attempt to escape, I grabbed the music box and hurled it across the room. It shattered into pieces, the music abruptly stopping. The door creaked open, and we stumbled out, gasping for breath. We didn't stop running until we were back in the car. The abandoned carnival loomed in the rearview mirror, a dark silhouette against the night sky. We never spoke of that night again, but the memory lingered. Years later, I heard a rumor about the carnival. They said it was cursed, haunted by the spirits of those who had died in a tragic accident decades ago. I couldn't help but wonder if we had encountered those restless spirits that night, trapped in a funhouse of nightmares. My family owned a small cabin in the woods, a perfect summer retreat away from the hustle and bustle of city life. It was a quaint, cozy place surrounded by tall trees and the sounds of nature. Every summer, we spent a few weeks there, enjoying the peace and quiet. This particular summer, however, was different. My parents had gone to town for supplies, leaving me alone for the afternoon. I didn't mind, I loved the solitude. I decided to take a walk in the woods, something I often did to clear my mind. As I ventured deeper into the forest, I stumbled upon something strange. It was a small, weathered shack, hidden among the trees. I had never seen it before, despite exploring these woods for years. Curiosity got the better of me, and I approached it. The shack was old and decrepit, with broken windows and a sagging roof. I peered inside, but it was too dark to see anything clearly. I pushed the door open, the hinges creaking loudly. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. I took a few steps inside, my eyes adjusting to the dim light. The interior was sparse, with a few pieces of broken furniture and a thick layer of dust covering everything. In the corner, I noticed a small, leather-bound book. It looked out of place, almost new compared to the rest of the shack. I picked it up and opened it, flipping through the pages. The book was filled with handwritten notes and drawings, all depicting strange symbols and rituals. My heart raced as I realized this was no ordinary book. It was a journal, chronicling someone's descent into madness. As I read further, I discovered disturbing entries about summoning spirits and communicating with the dead. The last entry sent chills down my spine. The ritual is complete. They are here. They are watching. Suddenly, I heard a rustling sound outside the shack. I froze, listening intently. The forest, which had been alive with the sounds of birds and insects, was now deathly silent. I felt a presence, something dark and malevolent. I quickly put the book back and backed out of the shack, my heart pounding. As I turned to leave, I saw them. Figures, shadowy and indistinct, standing among the trees, watching me. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and I felt their gaze piercing through me. Panic set in, and I ran. The forest seemed to close in around me, the trees twisting and turning in a nightmarish maze. No matter how fast I ran, I could feel them behind me, closing in. Their whispers filled my ears, incomprehensible and terrifying. I burst out of the forest and into the clearing around the cabin, gasping for breath. I slammed the door shut behind me, my hands shaking. I could still feel their presence, just outside, watching and waiting. My parents returned later that evening, oblivious to what had happened. I didn't tell them, fearing they wouldn't believe me. But I knew the truth. The cabin in the woods was not the safe haven it once was. It was a place of darkness, haunted by ancient spirits that had been awakened. That summer marked the last time we visited the cabin. The memories of those shadowy figures and their malevolent whispers haunted me for years. The woods held secrets that were never meant to be uncovered, and I had come too close to their dark heart.